Now to Walker in behind the net. 2:05 to go. For all intents and purposes, we're in overtime right now. Svechnikov back in along the wall. A shot, they score. Svechnikov got a deflection in front with 1:59 to go. And Carolina has taken a 2-1 lead here in Game 5. Svechnikov from bottom right circle has given Carolina the lead.
Yeah, with 1:59 left in the game. Barry Svrluga wrote in his column in the Washington Post following the game last night, quote, "There's nothing quite like the quiet of a jammed arena when the opposing team scores late in an elimination game of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's a stillness that belies the thousands who had just moments before belted out Metallica and boisterously raised the din to deafening," closed quote. There is, just bear with me here, because I know that last night hurt for many of you. There is something about winning on the road in the playoffs in every sport. There's just something that is dramatic, more dramatic about winning on the road and winning on the road late, whether it's in football, whether it is in baseball with a top of the 9th home run, or an extra inning top of the 12th home run, or in basketball in a Game 7 on the road, or in hockey when you get a late goal on the road in a game that eliminates the home team. Good morning, everybody. Joe Beninati in 20 minutes to wrap up not only last night's game, not only the series, but the season as well. Ben Standig will join us a little later on. I mentioned on yesterday's show that one of the things for me in terms of a takeaway from the schedule was net rest days. And Washington was going to be facing 4 teams coming off a bye. And so somebody did the work on the net rest days, and it's not good for Washington. Doesn't mean that the season's over. No. It just means they will have a disadvantage in terms of rest compared to many of their opponents. All right, the Caps, they're out in 5 games. Short and sweet and pretty conclusive, really. You know, the Caps did go out fighting last night. You know, you can't say that in their last opportunity in this series, they went out without resistance. They actually out-attempted Carolina in the game, 51-49. So that was a massive change from the first 4 games. Much of it coming in what turned out to be a very desperate third period attempt to get the go-ahead goal, which never came. So I'm not about to do the thing that would be super cliche, I think, for this time of year. You know, Caps end of season before maybe a round in which they were expected to advance. I mean, that has become sort of a rite of spring over the years. I mean, what is it now? 20 out of the 21 during the whatever it is during the Ovechkin era. That there's been 1 year, 1 out of all of them that they've advanced further than what they were expected to advance. I'm not going to do the thing where I say they went out meekly. You know, they went out without a legitimate fight. I thought, even though the series was a 5-game series, I thought they put up resistance last night. I thought Logan Thompson, you know, he may have given up a cheap goal here or there, a bad goal here or there. But for the most part, I thought he kept him in the game last night, as did, by the way, his counterpart, Anderson, the goaltender for Carolina. Carolina was just better in this series. And I can't tell you that their talent is better or their scheme is better or the coaching is better. But I watched every single second of every single game in this series. And to any sports fan, it was obvious that the better team won this series. And they were the better team for the significant majority of the action. And I've heard, you know, oh, well, this was a terrible matchup for the Caps. This was the matchup they didn't want. I'll be honest with you. I didn't hear that before the series. I heard that Carolina was good and that stylistically they played a little bit differently, but, you know, that the Cap and they were favored. You know, turns out odds makers shorting the Caps heading into this postseason, shorting them heading into this series. Turns out they were right. Carolina, by the way, was a sizable favorite last night on the road in Game 5. They were minus 180 last night. But I've heard just a bad matchup. They would have done much better against almost any other team in the East except for Carolina. I personally did not hear a lot of that before the series began. Maybe I just missed it. I just think stylistically, maybe that there's some truth to it. I don't know. Carolina dominated a lot of the stats in this series that I guess are important. Puck possession, offensive zone possession, shot attempts. We had Alan May on the show the other day, and Alan May said what has to change is they've got to send the puck to the net over and over again. It's what Carolina does, and you end up with a couple of goals that you're not even expecting to get, and that's what Carolina got at the end there. That wasn't really a legitimate opportunity. He just sent it towards the net. Little bit of screen, little bit of sight loss, boom. It's in the back of the net, and it's over. It is, though, this thing with this particular team in our city where they have come up short so much over the years. I mean, great regular seasons followed by massive playoff disappointments. Now, this may be different in that the season itself wasn't expected. No one was really expecting this season to happen. They ended up with the best record in the East. I mean, I don't know how you Caps fans, and I'll ask Max here in a moment. I don't know how you guys would describe it and talk about it because, the old saying, don't miss the journey. The journey sometimes is the best part rather than the final result. I don't know. I'm into championships personally. But I can appreciate the journey of a long season, and especially in a sport that is so hit and miss, mysterious, random, whatever you want to say about it in the postseason. Rarely do the two best teams in the regular season meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. Rarely does the best team in the regular season win the whole thing. It's just the way the sport works. It comes down to a puck off a post, a puck off a pad, a puck off a skate blade, a puck that just bounces oddly. Look, the Caps goal last night, Beauvillier, that goal was a little bit fortunate. That was just a bad bounce off the boards that ended up right by the goalies, right by the post and the goaltender. So you can focus on all of the failures, and let's face it, first year of Ovechkin out in the first round, second year of Ovechkin out in the second round, third year out in the first round as a President's Trophy winning team. Next year, out second round. Next year, out second round. Next year, out first round. 2015.
The puck drops. It is controlled by the Capitals inside their own zone, and there will be a handshake line tonight. The Carolina Hurricanes have come to Washington and closed out the series here in Game 5. Final score, 3-1.
John Walton last night with the final call. Joe Beninati coming up. Sorry about that. We had a major power surge in the building. But we are back. And look, I was saying that it's very easy to get comfortable this time of year and just say they choked again. They're out early again. They fell short of where they were supposed to be by seeding again. Because really, in the Alex Ovechkin era, they've only been past the second round one time, and that was 2018 when they won the Cup. And of the other 15, opportunities, they probably reached the second round when they were supposed to reach the second round, or, you're talking about maybe half those times. And then beyond that, they were supposed to go further half of those times. Look, the journey itself, the 82 games, and year in and year out, with the exception of 2 years during the Ovechkin era, qualifying for the postseason is an accomplishment. But I think most sports ultimately come down to, what did you do in the postseason? And the Caps are out again. I don't know. After the first round, I think there was this sense of they had to get out of the first round for the first time since 2018. They did that. But then to be truly beaten, not without effort, not going out meekly, not without a fight, but to be beaten by what was clearly a better team in 5 games, I wonder what Caps fans think. Max, you are a Caps fan. I know it's disappointing today.
It is.
But
it hurts.
Was this a season in which you would, describe it as a good season, a successful season, or not?
It's interesting because Giannis had a good quote a couple years ago about us having successful seasons, and it doesn't have to end in a championship in order for a season to be successful. This was definitely a successful regular season for the Caps. Ted Starkey had a really good tweet. He said this year's Caps were a unique blend of exceeding expectations, defying logic, with history mixed in. You won't see this often. So, and he's absolutely right. Like the Ovechkin goal chase, the unity that this team played with, like the friendship in the locker room, all of that was so special this season. That it's definitely not wasted, but it is disappointing. Especially when you get circle skated around you for the better part of 5 games. Like the third period last night, they tried their ass off. I credit to them. They played like a team with their season on the line and just had one bad break really late in the game. Like watching this team for 20 years, I could feel it the entire time. Like I was
felt it coming.
Yeah, I was expecting disaster the entire third period.
Yeah.
Like when those chances weren't going in, it was just like, I've seen this before. I know they're going to get one late, and I'm going to sprawl out on my floor and lay here for a minute and take a deep breath. But it's still a successful regular season, not a successful playoffs. I had a little bit higher hopes for this team, but Carolina was a bad draw. It's tough going up against.
Did you feel that way before the series started?
So the thing about we knew that they were fast, we knew that they were small, we knew that they were young. But I expected the Caps to be able to handle it a little bit better than they did. And because like game 2, they did pretty well. They were playing physical. They were doing exactly what they needed to do. They weren't giving them time to breathe, room to move, anything to get a clean look on Logan Thompson. And they got away from that game plan. The Lars Eller line through 4 games was not very good. Moving McMichael.
Well, he was out last night.
Exactly. Moving McMichael into center last night, I think was a really, really, they should have done it earlier. They didn't. And that's, something that Carberry's going to have to look at going into the offseason. It's just, it sucks that this is how it ended, but this was kind of, you could see it coming for the past couple of days.
Look, last night's game, it was interesting because I have talked many times over the years about the feeling in that building in sort of an elimination game.
Yeah.
Because so many of the fans there have been there, done that.
They've
Not a
lived it,
lot of
yeah.
the players on the team necessarily have been through all of the heartbreaking home elimination losses, many of them coming in 7th in deciding games. But I didn't feel that way watching it. Last night was the first time in watching the 5 games in this series where I felt like during the game, Carolina got that first goal, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Stahl got that first goal, and I'm like, that's, you want to get the first goal in a series, especially in a series in which, both teams, but the Caps specifically, are struggling to score. The Caps had 7 total goals in a 5-game series. I mean, I can do that analysis. It's not enough. 5 games, 7 goals is 1 point, basically like 1.4 goals per game. That's not enough. I know Logan Thompson gave up some cheapies or some bad or soft goals, however you hockey people describe them, but he gave up 2 goals last night. 2.
Yep.
You got to score more than 1.4 per game, but I didn't feel watching last night's game. I didn't feel like the Caps were laying an egg, that they were.
No.
Last night felt like the most competitive of the games, and I felt like they were going to win it. And then I kept thinking to myself, man, hockey's weird. You win, and it's 3-2, and all of a sudden, just 60 minutes later, the pressure's back on the other team that's got the lead to end it at home on Saturday night. I think that's when the game would have been, on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But they didn't get it done, and they had opportunities, man, plenty of opportunities, and so did Carolina. And the Caps got that go-ahead goal that they were clearly offsides on. That was a good pickup, I guess, by the Carolina bench, because the broadcast, Kenny Albert and company didn't really pick it up right away. They were like, what's going on? Maybe they're looking at something. And then they found it, so that has to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but that has to be challenged, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They have coaches like upstairs looking at monitors and all that.
But that's not something that somebody else is going to come in and say that goal's not allowed. We picked it up from New York.
Carolina would have to look at it and challenge it, since they didn't call the offsides on the play.
Right. And that felt really like a gut punch in the moment.
Absolutely.
Because in watching the TNT broadcast with Kenny Albert on the call, he said something at some point, and I forget who the analyst was on the game. I don't know. Brian Bouchard, is that it?
Brian Boucher.
There you go. Brian Boucher was on the call with him, and they both kind of said the same thing that I was feeling watching the game, and that is, whoever gets this first goal in the 3rd period is going to win the game. And once you got late into the period, and there were some incredible saves by Logan Thompson. Incredible saves. I mean, Carolina had some, I saw, where did I see this stat?
Wide open net. He saved it with like the butt
that was
of his
amazing.
It was insane.
It was a bad shot attempt too.
Yeah.
The puck kind of got away from whoever that was. But so the Caps had, in the 3rd period, they had 13 5-on-5 high danger chances, which were the most for them in a period in the series. They were playing desperately, and they were, creating chances and kind of playing the way maybe they should have played the entire series. The problem was Carolina had 14 of those 5-on-5 high danger chances. The power play just was never there for them in this particular series. It wasn't there for the Montreal series. By the way, go ahead and reach out to Joe. Joe's ready to go. And just let me know when you have him on the phone. The Caps, remember, were 1 for their first 10, I believe, in the Montreal series before it kind of came alive late in the series. But I think I saw this stat. They're like the 3rd or 4th worst power play so far in the postseason, but the worst in the 2nd round. And I know that Carolina, and I didn't know this before, I know that they had a very good penalty kill unit during the season, and I thought they did a great job. We got Joe. All right. Joe Beninati is with us. Of course, the voice of the Washington Capitals on Monumental Sports. net, when I texted Joe to ask him, he said, hopefully we are preparing and talking about a game 6. And I just said, Joe, I felt like watching last night's game. I didn't feel like the pressure and the tenseness of, oh, it's going to go badly, like it happens all the time in 7th games at home over the years. I felt like they were playing their best game of the series and that they just needed one to go in and they'd win it. How did you feel about the overall game last night?
Yeah, I think my thoughts are close to the same, Kevin. I said this, that in the first 4 games of the series, I thought the right team won. And in game 5, I wasn't sure that the right team won the game. Washington deserved better than that. But that just sounds like, again, it sounds like you're whistling past the graveyard. They didn't score goals. And this just wasn't a second-round problem. This was evident at times in the Montreal series. It was evident in the last 4 to 6 weeks of the regular season. The offensive boil that they were on in the first 3-4 months of the season was amazing, and a lot of us questioned whether or not it was sustainable. Their shooting percentage, which you don't often refer to quite a bit in hockey, their shooting percentage was off the charts, led the NHL for the longest time, and you could routinely count on them for 4 or 5 goals. That wasn't the case in the last 2 months of the season, this month of the playoffs included. And for whatever reason, and you could start with Frederik Andersen, you could start with Carolina's defense, they weren't able to score many goals in this series, nowhere near enough to threaten a team like Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, 7 goals, 1.4 goals per game is not enough. Even I know that.
Nope.
In a best of 7. Why weren't they able to score more? Was it more about Anderson or more about what Alan May said to me yesterday or the day before, which is they're not doing what Carolina is doing. They're not attempting enough shots, even though they did last night.
This is an age-old question now, and we've discussed it. I think you and I have discussed it on the air as well. Quality versus quantity. And, Rod Brindamore will bristle when you bring this up, because Rod thinks that all of us in the media are saying all Carolina does is get it in the zone and throw everything at the net. Willy-nilly, it doesn't matter, just send it to the net. I don't know that they do that either, but they have control of the puck, or they have possession time, or they have O-zone, the puck in the offensive zone enough that they're able to generate so many opportunities to shoot on goal that they take them. And analytically, you can break these numbers down any way you'd like, but 9 times out of 10, when you're playing Carolina, they have the puck more than you. The puck is more in your defensive zone than theirs. And likely, and it was the trend throughout the season, Kevin, they generate more offensive shots than you do. And then everybody does the math and says, okay, the more the puck goes to the net, the better opportunity there is to score a number of goals. Some teams believe in quality shots more so than quantity, so they wait for better opportunities to get more of these so-called high-danger chances. The Caps didn't generate a lot of high-danger chances in the series against Anderson and the Canes, but I believe he stopped every single one of them. And that's incredible. He's very good. Frederik's very good. He has a reputation of being very good until injuries beset him. He's been injured again this year. It was a knee. The year prior, it was a blood clotting issue. But he's talented, and he's big, and he's got a very good defensive concept in front of him. When he was called upon to make key saves in this series, he did it every single time. And I keep going back to the 2 games in Raleigh. And game 3, to me, Kevin, was the best game the Caps played in the entire playoffs. The first period, I should say, was the best I have seen the Caps in the entire playoffs, Montreal included. And that would be the only other thing close would have been game 4 against Montreal in Montreal when Wilson throws that massive hit and they scored 4 times in that period. The first period of game 3 in Raleigh, I thought they had the formula. And in the first 5 minutes, wouldn't you know it, Anderson made at least 3 good saves. Oh, Joe, what do you mean? They could easily have been up 3-0, Washington, that is, and we might be singing a different tune, and we might be looking at a game 6. They didn't convert. And more often than not, if you're going to ask me what it was that why Washington scored, I think it was 7, and one of those was an empty netter. Why did the Caps only score that few goals? Carolina's pressure game forced them out of their normal poise. They didn't have the same composure. They didn't have the same poise. They didn't have the same finish. And a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of it has to do with the way Carolina swarms on defense and pressures on defense. They make you uncomfortable. They never stop.
Yeah, and they really seem to get sticks on pucks consistently more in this series than the Caps did. There's a couple of specific things that I wanted to ask you about from the game last night. The offsides on the Roy goal that gave them a 2-1 lead.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to this. Is that just bad luck, or is that a mistake not to be clearly onsides when the puck went into the zone?
Boy, no, the game is so fast,
I know.
and things happen in a blink, and it was clearly offside. The player was completely in across the line before the puck gets. The puck's not in the zone in that instance until it's all the way across the blue line. So they had multiple looks showing a clear offside. A lot of the times, players will realize, "Ooh, I'm close here. Let me drag that trail skate," and you'll see them almost go into like a dance move to try and slow down and delay and drag a skate to keep onside. It happens so quickly. It's just a matter of timing, and in that case, bad timing, bad luck, and then seconds later, Matt Roy's pumping one past Anderson that again could have easily changed the complexion of the game. I thought Washington played extremely well last night. I thought the late goal, the series-clinching goal, was a gut punch. I fully expected Washington to win the third period, and if not, take care of things in overtime. It didn't happen, and it was so swift and so sudden, it was a kick in the gut.
The player that was most noticeable to me all night long for the Caps, I thought he was really good, and I don't have any of the advanced stats numbers, but I'm just curious. Number 6, Chychrun, the defenseman, just was – it was so obvious that he was having a great game. Did anybody play better than he did?
No, not last night. No. I mean, that was a man possessed.
Yeah.
And fans get to know Jacob Chychrun this year, and fans obviously recognize the Capitals made him an extremely well-paid and long-term part of their future. And for good reason. You could see why they made that investment last night, especially in the second period. Kevin, his play in the second period, he was breathtaking. I mean, Cale Makar out in Colorado, Zach Werenski in Columbus, and Jacob Chychrun, to me, were the 3 best offensive defensemen this season. The things Makar does in Denver are extraordinary. There were a lot of flashes of Makar last night from Chychrun in that second period especially. He commanded the puck. He went end-to-end with it. He showed you his speed, his shooting ability, his power. First of all, he's a phenomenal athlete, like an extraordinary athlete. Doc Walker would call him a specimen. He is a specimen, and he has a great mind for the game. I think his attitude is terrific. His teammates warmed to him very quickly this year. I'm excited to see where Jacob can go over the next few years. He's a longtime Cap now, thanks to the contract that he earned and signed this season. But that game last night, and especially that middle period, that was impressive.
Logan Thompson, he ultimately, when all was said and done, gave up just 2 goals and had some unbelievable saves in the game. But I know that hockey people say, yeah, but the 2 goals that he gave up, especially the last one, those are cheap, soft, bad, whatever adjective you want to use to describe them. I'll let you describe his performance last night and for the series.
Yeah, I know he's angry with himself, and professional players, outstanding talents, they have enormous pride, and Logan's pride was hurt last night. He said so in the post game. He admitted that he wished he were better in the situations where Carolina scored. First of all, those other guys on the other team, they're on scholarship too, Kevin. They're really good. And Jordan Stahl has made a long-time career of playing extremely well, extremely strong, and when he gets the opportunities, he can bury. That was a beautiful shot. The first goal, I thought. Logan is, again, I'm not going to get in his head. I'm not going to play goalie for you. I'll let Logan settle it when he speaks and addresses the media further if he were to choose. But to me, it looks like Logan is preparing for a shot to the short side there from the bad angle, and Stahl beats him to the far side. It was a very well-placed shot. Logan will tell you, and I'm sure, again, I'm paraphrasing here, I'm putting words into his mouth. He would prefer to have played that one differently and have made that save. The game-winning goal is the one where you sit there and go, okay, what did you see? And when he explained it in the post-game media scrum, he lost sight of it when it went wide. And I was addressing it with Alan May and Bruce Boudreau and Alexa Landestoy on Monumental Sports Network last night. To me, it looked like he was set. He was ready. Something happened. He lost sight. He comes out of his crouch. By the time he gets back, he gets caught in between. And to be perfectly honest, and this is going to be again, here's Joe with the Caps colored glasses again. 9 times out of 10, Kevin, that Svechnikov shot, especially in this series where teams are blocking shots like nuts.
Yeah.
Those shots don't go through, much less go in cleanly. That one went in cleanly. The Carolina Hurricanes were really good in the series, deserved to move on, deserved to win in 5. But as usual, once again, hockey shows you, you can play well, and if luck is in your favor, you can go a long way. That is just good fortune right there. From that angle, he's just throwing it to the net and hoping. And again, 9 times out of 10, somebody gets in the way of that. It hits off of somebody's butt, and it's a harmless play. That one just happens to go cleanly through. Logan doesn't see it, doesn't respond till it's too late, and it goes past him. And then you're like, wow. You know, a series-clinching goal, a game-winning goal, you want those to be quote-unquote good goals, no doubt goals. That was one where you're from that angle, you're like, that's going to go in? And Logan is angry with himself.
The overtime goal in Game 1 felt the same way.
A little bit, yeah. Again, screen, where he doesn't pick it up. And again, people will sit there, and I know Alan May insists upon this. Okay, you took the shot. Again, a lot of people won't take that Svechnikov shot last night because it's from so bad of an angle. A lot of people won't necessarily take the Slavin shot in Game 1 from the point. Not much developing there in front, but Carolina's game plan is to get it to the net and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, good things happened on those two.
Yeah, this sport is just, if you get it anywhere near it, things happen.
There's whimsy involved in it, definitely. There's definite whimsy involved in it, no doubt.
Whimsy's a good one, too.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking to Joe Beninati, of course, the longtime voice of the Cavs. All right, before we talk about what's next, let's just talk about the Ovechkin era, because this conversation comes up every year. I mean, it's almost like, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but it's almost become a rite of spring where the Caps season ends prematurely based on what most people thought they had the potential to do. It's 15 out of the 16 playoff seasons other than 2018. I know some of those second round appearances were against better teams. Fair enough. But can you enjoy the journey? Can you look at the season? You're a part of the journey. Can you look at the season and say, no, man, in this sport, you win that many games. But by the way, throw in the whole sideshow, which was an historic one of chasing down Gretzky's record. But, when you look back on it, is it a disappointing season? Is it a successful season? How would Joe Beninati, who was a part of the broadcast journey through 82 and 10 afterwards, 92 total games, how would you describe it?
Kevin, I think to answer your question, you need to go back and look at it from an 8-9 month rollback. So take it all the way back. And when Chris Patrick and Brian McClellan add the players that they add in the offseason, at that time, heading into October, the start of the season, the 50th anniversary season for the Capitals, at that time, most people who were in the know, most people who would be qualified to offer an opinion as to whether or not the Capitals were even a playoff team would have said to you, peripheral, maybe 7-8 seed, likely not to get into the postseason. So if that is the launch point, then I would have to say this was an incredible season. They did what they did. They ran away with the East. They ran away with the Metro Division. They were in large part in the conversation with Winnipeg for a President's Trophy throughout the campaign when most people didn't think they were even a playoff team. they had 50-plus wins again. I want to say Ovechkin's been a part of that 6 times. This was overall unexpected. Then, Bo, when you get to February and March and April, and this is the gist of your question, now you are the team you are. And you look like a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And I'll be perfectly honest, at the beginning of the playoffs, Kevin, my assumption was that they would get to round 3. I thought they would get through the first 2 rounds. I thought they would run into trouble, likely with Florida. And it didn't happen that way. They fell short of that. But more importantly, Spencer Carberry, to his team, will tell you that they dream really big. They're not dreaming of a second-round appearance. They're dreaming about going all the way. And this team looked like it had. When you looked at this team in January, February, you'd sit there and go, whoa, I know they're only, halfway through the season, 60% through the season, but man, they're good. And they look like they can hang with anybody.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, for whatever the reason was, I keep pointing back to the offense fizzled. The offense went away. Where did it go? That's ultimately, was it fool's goal? Was the first 3-4 months of the season and the high shooting percentage and all the 4, 5, and 6 goal games, was that fool's goal? I don't think so. I thought they played very, very well, and they put pressure on other teams' defenses, made life miserable for goalies, and they were racking up goals like crazy. They didn't have that in the last 2 months. I wonder where it went. Or did just teams make adjustments? Did goalies get better? Did luck run out? You tell me. But I have to consider, when you go back to the start of the season and what was the quote-unquote supposed projection for this team, nobody projected them to win the East. They did that. They won 50-plus games. I think they're thinking that, okay, future's even brighter. And you mentioned the Ovechkin saga, the quest, the chase. That took a lot out of the club, no doubt. And it was a brilliant individual achievement, for one that we'll never, ever forget. They were able to have enough time, I believe. Maybe this is not the case, and maybe we'll learn more on the exit interviews and whatever it is that they do with regard to the press conferences postseason. I thought they had enough time between 895 and the playoffs to make a mental reset, to get themselves back in gear for the team goals. I don't know if they were able to achieve that. They didn't do that in terms of getting to a 3rd and 4th round. I thought they could make the 3rd round, Kevin. That was my estimation, and they fell a little bit short of that. But going back to the beginning of the season, no. And all the way around, and this is going to sound like the company man again, but all the way around this 50th anniversary season for the organization, for the network, for Monumental Sports Network, I couldn't be more proud of the way the organization showed itself in this 50th anniversary celebration, from an alumni relations standpoint, and from, on the TV side, how we chronicled this entire season and this great chase. For that, I'm extremely proud.
All right. What's next? Let's start with 8. Will he be back? He's under contract for 1 more year. What's your guess? He still has a big number 900 would be a big buildup early in the season next October.
Absolutely. And I, again, without having spoken to Alex, I did not speak to him after the game last night. I have not spoken to him about the subject. Let's put it this way. The only way that I thought potentially Ovechkin would retire after this season would be 895 in a cup. He got 895. He didn't win the cup. I think he comes back next year with 1 year on the deal, and that's the quote-unquote farewell tour for the game's greatest goal scorer of all time. I fully expect him to play next year. Now, that's just a decision for Alex and his family to make, but I think he will come back.
How did you think he played in this series?
He was what I expect from Alex at this point in his career, and against speed teams such as Carolina. And we're talking, I think, again, I'm not sure there's a team any faster than Carolina in the East. Jersey, when they're completely healthy, is extremely fast. The tempo of that series is not best suited for a 39-year-old Alex Ovechkin. So he did, and he powered his way through as best as he can. But like so many of the Caps, you get overwhelmed by that speed. It forces you to accelerate your thinking, accelerate your movements, and sometimes that poise and composure leaves you. I know he popped a power play goal You come to expect that from him. And I know Alex values his play 5-on-5 and wants to deliver more than he did.
What else next year? Who's back? What does this team look like? What does it need to add in the offseason?
Well, let's see. As far as expiring contracts are concerned, I thought Anthony Beauvillier really made a good impression.
Yeah.
And at $1.25 million on an expiring contract, I wouldn't be surprised if the Caps talk to Anthony about being a part of their future. Andrew Mangiapane at $5.8 million on an expiring contract. That's one that's going to be interesting. I wonder where they're going to go there. Taylor Radish, $1 million on an expiring contract. I like that fourth line a lot. They went back to it, a combination that's worked well for them, Duhaime, Dowd, and Radish. But we'll see there. There are probably, in the case of Mangiapane and in the case of Radish, and in the case of Lars Eller, there are probably candidates that are being considered from the American Hockey League's Hershey Bears to take those roles. There are also some bright prospects on the future, young kids, 18, 19-year-old kids who are likely to factor into that decision. But, Lars was taken off of the rink last night.
Yeah.
Connor McMichael subbed in as a third-line center. Connor McMichael is not a third-line center. He's a top 6 guy when he's at his best. And let's see where they position. The good thing is, it sounds like I've got a lot of people to consider for a 51 team and an 111, whatever it was, point team. There's a lot going on there. That defense is completely signed, Kevin.
Everybody what would you say, though, is their number one need to go out and get, in perhaps free agency?
I would find a scorer for the third line. We kept coming back consistently saying, geez, I wish there was more from Mangiapane and Eller and whether it be Leonard or Radish. We need more on that third line. There's got to be more of a oomph because you've got, again, if McMichael and Protas can deliver consistently, if you're going to get high 20s, mid 20s from McMichael and like you did this year, 30 from Protas, which I think makes him bar none the most improved player in the league. I don't know if I can sit there and tell you, Protas is going to get me 30 next year. I don't know about that. That was an amazing season for Alexei, but they need to fatten up. They need to thicken the offensive, in my opinion, the offensive goal total from the second and third line. So I'm looking for a quality mid-20s goal scorer that I can position somewhere else in that second and third line. They're out there. There's money to spend. The cap is increasing. And just judging by last season, what Brian McClellan and Chris Patrick did in the offseason, they're going to make the right choices and help this team improve.
I'm going to miss these conversations. I actually like this time of year because I love talking to people like you. Oh, one more quick question for you. Totally different subject. Maryland or Georgetown in the lacrosse, quarterfinal game on Sunday in Annapolis?
Yeah, I'm hoping to be there. That's going to be a great doubleheader. It's Maryland, Georgetown, and Penn State, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a nice day. I wouldn't be surprised if they have 30,000 people out there. It's a nice, beautiful facility to watch a game. I think when you give head coach John Tillman of the Terrapins a week to prepare, they'll get it done. He and his staff, they're master tacticians. They've got enough talent to do it. I think it's a really tight game. Georgetown is playing extremely well at the right time. I saw Maryland stub their toe in the Big Ten tournament final. I think they got back on the beam last week. And again, with a week to prepare, I like Maryland in a super close game.
Thanks for doing this. I love talking to you. Enjoy the off season, and I'm sure we'll be talking before the next one begins. Appreciate it.
Anytime you like, Kevin. I always enjoy the conversation. Thanks.
Joe Beninati, everybody, on X, on Twitter, at JoeBPXP, play-by-play. Great NBA game last night. Forced a Game 7 in Denver. More on that next.
All right, Caps, fortunately, fall to Carolina 3-1. They get bounced from the playoffs in 5 games. First time they've been eliminated in round 2 since 2017. The Nats, they fall 5-2 in a midday matchup versus the Atlanta Braves. The Nats will continue their road trip tonight for rivalry weekend just up the street versus a struggling Baltimore Orioles club. Nats on deck is at 6:35 right after Grant and Danny on the Fan. Nuggets, they beat the Thunder 119-107 to force Game 7. 3 players with 20-plus points on the Nuggets. Jokic had 29, 14, and 8. Christian Brown with 23, 11, and 5. And Jamal Murray, 25, 8, and 7. PGA Championship is currently underway from Quail Hollow. Jonathan Vegas is at 6 under. He is in the lead. Michael Torbjornsson is at 5 under. He's tied for second along with Aaron Rai. Max Homa also tied for second. He has just climbed up into the leaderboard. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
My guy Kevin from Arlington, I love Kev. He said Joe B's the best, but need to concede the reality. The OV gold chase was a terrible distraction during the last quarter of the regular season. It became the team's mission, and they took their eyes off the real prize. They completely lost their offensive flow, and Protus, their best 5-on-5 scorer, was not the same after coming back from injury in the playoffs. It makes me nauseous, but it is what it is. Well, I mean, the Protus thing is different from the emphasis on the Ovechkin goal chase. What I would say to that is, it's something that Tommy said to me on the podcast at some point a few weeks ago when people were saying the Caps have kind of lost their focus. It's all been about Ovechkin's, chasing down of Gretzky. We're not talking about a Ripken consecutive game played streak where, we're all focused on him just getting in the lineup to continue a consecutive. The goal that he was trying to achieve was something that aligns with something that's good with the team, for the team. Scoring goals. Like, scoring goals is the idea. So kind of like this idea that the focus on Ovechkin, if you want to say the media attention and the number of questions they had to ask after games and the focus on feeding Ovi the puck maybe. But look, one of the reasons the Caps ended up with the best record in the Eastern Conference is because Ovechkin finished third in the league in goals scored. Whether it was part of a chase or not, him scoring all those goals were a good thing, I would have thought. 44 goals in 65 games, tied for third in the league. Certainly got to be near the top of the list of reasons the Caps ended up with the best overall record. I think there's a big difference between we're focused on getting this old man, a sacred, kind of record, and, he shouldn't be out there, shouldn't really be playing, but this is the focus of the team and No, that's not what it was. He was their best goal scorer. He was the third best goal scorer in the league this year at 39 years old. Scoring goals, whether it's part of a goal chase, all-time record chase or not, would seem to be a good thing. I understand there's nuance here, but this is what really got them off their stride. There's a bit of a disconnect for me. I'm not suggesting I have the right answer here, but the record he was chasing was a record that basically led to him doing good things for the team, which enabled them to win 51 games in the regular season and end up with 111 points and the best record in the East. Without that chasing down of Gretzky, which nobody predicted would happen this year, the Caps would have had fewer wins. Am I right, Max, or wrong?
Caps fewer wins if they didn't play as well, you said?
No, you weren't listening to me. It's
You're
fine.
right, I wasn't.
You're working. You got your what's trending coming up, and we got, Max is always multitasking.
It's true.
What I said was the idea that the focus on Ovechkin's, record chase of Gretzky's overall number distracted the team. It's not the same as saying Cal Ripken's consecutive game played streak. Like, we're going to just get the old man in the game to continue this chase towards a record. The record actually aligned with what was good for the team. His goal scoring is a big part of why the team won 51 games this year.
Absolutely. Especially because whenever Ovechkin's out there, he's always a threat. Like, even when he's like taking a defensive shift off and kind of sitting back behind the play or hiding along the boards, you always have to keep an eye on where he is. So he's always going to draw the defense over, especially. So he's going to give you a little bit more space on the other side of the ice. So yeah, absolutely. Ovechkin has been, he's always going to be a draw, even no matter how old he is. Even at 40 years old, you still got to keep an eye out for that ripper of a shot from the top of the offense.
Yeah, Kevin just said, he said he was a big part of getting the 1 seed, but I watched every game and the team started standing around. We're puck watching and preoccupied with feeding their captain as he chased Gretzky, not their flowing 5-on-5 game that had them at the top of the league while Ovi was out 15 games with a broken leg. It's not hard to understand what I'm saying at all. Yeah, I understand there's some nuance there, and maybe they were standing around watching him. But ultimately, the goal scoring this season for them, with him in the lineup, scoring goals while simultaneously chasing down a record, didn't hurt them over 82. Also, I would suggest, and maybe I'm wrong, that once you get to the postseason in this sport, the game's completely different anyway.
Yeah.
So however you were playing coming in to the playoffs, whatever was a distraction, it's like a completely different season and things happen. I mean, Winnipeg was the President's Trophy winning team this year. They were on an absolute, roll at the end of the season. I think they won something like 10 out of their last 12 or 11 out of their last 14, and they're on the verge of being extinguished here in the second round. It's just, these playoffs, man, are just completely different, as are the NBA playoffs. I'll have something on Jokic and Murray forcing a Game 7 last night in Denver next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Not firing.
Points in the paint up as well. Jokic, oh, what a pass! No look to Christian Brown.
There we go. Just have to wait for it. You got to be patient, people. That was an unbelievable pass last night by Nikola Jokic as part of another exemplary performance by the veteran, experienced group that Denver has. So indulge me for just a few minutes to talk about the NBA playoffs, which have been spectacular start to finish. You've had number one seeds go down. The number one seed in the East was Cleveland. They're out in 5 games to Indiana. The Indiana Pacers actually could win the NBA championship this year. That's how wide open these playoffs have been. The games have been memorable, some of them epic. The performances, it seems like every other night we're getting a performance for the ages, a performance that ESPN Stats has to measure historically. Last night, the Nuggets at home in a series that has literally been a test of physical will. The unbelievable defense, the intensity of these two teams in almost every game except for game 2 has been spectacular to watch. These are not two teams that focus on iso ball. These aren't two teams that give up, easy bucket after easy bucket. Denver's not a great defensive team, but at times they've played incredibly well when it's mattered. It's a matchup between a championship team from a few years ago with championship players in Denver against a team in Oklahoma City who had one of the great regular seasons in the history of the game. They went 68-14, and their margin of victory was the largest in NBA history in the regular season. But they are a team with young, inexperienced postseason-wise players. They got to the second round last year in their first playoff run together and lost. They have the presumed MVP. It'll be very close between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, as he's known, and Nikola Jokic in Denver, looking for his 4th MVP. I think SGA will get it by, maybe a comfortable margin. We'll see. Interestingly, they have not named the MVP yet, and these two will go at it in a 7th and deciding game on Sunday afternoon in Oklahoma City. But if you haven't had a chance to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, played at Kentucky for a year, Canadian, been in the league, was a top 10 pick, somewhere around number 10, I think, 7, 8 years ago at this point. He's 26 years old, so he's probably been in the league 7 years. He started his career in LA with the Clippers, got traded. He was not a draft choice of Oklahoma City, but he's been an outstanding player now for several years running. Last year, he was certainly in the conversation for MVP, and this year he averaged 33 points a game. He shot 50+% from the field, close to 40 from behind the arc. His game is very old school. It's methodical. He thrives in the mid-range. He's one of those old school players that gets to his, spot. And once he gets to his spot, he's almost unstoppable. He's actually got a couple of spots. They're both mid-range spots. The baseline where he uses his body, which is not overwhelmingly physical. It's 6'6", 190 maybe. But he uses it so well to get just enough space, and he's just deadly on that baseline 10 to 12-foot jump shot. Same thing in the paint. Once he gets inside that free throw line, he's able to create enough space, and he's just money, never misses. He's phenomenal at driving the ball and finishing at the rim, and he shoots the 3 well, too. He is spectacular. He's matched up, not, in terms of guarding each other, against one of the greatest to ever do it. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but Nikola Jokic is flat out one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. And you're watching him right now, if you choose to, like I do, in his prime at 30 years old. He is the most skilled center in the history of the game. Now, you may say, no, come on. Kevin. It's got to be Wilt in terms of just overall skill. Well, Wilt didn't shoot the three. They didn't shoot the three back then. I get it. Willis Reed may have been able to shoot the three. He had a really good jump shot. There have been some great centers in the history of the game that could shoot the jump shot. But, Kareem's not taking you out to the three-point line. Russell's not taking you out to the three-point line. I don't think Wilt would have ever taken you out to the three-point line. Olajuwon, maybe a little bit different. He had a really good stroke and a really good face-up game as well as a post game. Shaq's not going to take you out to the three-point line. Nikola Jokic, in terms of offensive well-roundedness and skill, I think you'd have to say he's the most skilled and versatile center in the history of the NBA. Last night, in a game that they had to have at home, down 3-2, let the game come to him because he had a player in Jamal Murray who was sick, had a temperature, was listed as questionable, and had not a Jordan flu game. I'm not about to go there, but man, was he good last night, given his condition. You could tell he was sucking wind from the beginning. They played him 42 minutes. He ended up with 25 points and a plus-minus of plus 28 in the game. Jokic, 29 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals in the game after going for 44, 15, and 6 in Game 5. Denver and Oklahoma City are tied up at 3 games apiece. The truth is Denver had Oklahoma City on the ropes in Game 4 to take a 3-1 lead and had them on the ropes up 9 in the fourth quarter in Game 5. This series could easily be over, but it's not. SGA, phenomenal. Last night was the first truly bad game for one of their other big-time supporting role players, Jalen Williams. He was 3 for 16. Chet Holmgren, if you recall, was the number 2 overall pick a few years ago out of Gonzaga. 7'1", when he got drafted, he may have been 175 pounds. That's exaggerating, but he was less than 200 at 7'1". He's not a whole hell of a lot heavier than what he was when he came into the league, but he is an incredibly versatile big man, can put it on the floor, can shoot it, can post, is a rim protector. They've got so much talent. They've got so much depth. They're young. They're fresh. Denver has the experience. I think they've got the best player and the biggest force in the series in Jokic, but it's close with SGA. But they are very reliant on their starters, although last night they got the first off-the-bench surprise, shocking performance from Julian Strawther, who came in off the bench and hit 3 huge threes and scored 15 when I'm not sure he had scored more than 2 or 3. I'm looking it up right now in any game. He had 9 in Game 2, which was a blowout. He had 3 in Game 5. You need that. And, you need somebody to come up big because, God, Russell Westbrook, yes, he's still in the league, if you were wondering. 36 years old, playing at this point with, I don't know, his 6th or 7th team. Remember, he was here for a season. The thing that people don't know about Russell Westbrook is he, in every locker room, becomes the alpha leader, the most popular person on the team. And yet, as much as I used to love Westbrook, I came to the conclusion a few years ago, it's really hard to win with him if he's going to be out there for significant minutes. His minutes aren't significant. He comes off the bench, but he's either, if you could just tell Russell Westbrook, you're going to play defense and you're going to crash the offensive glass, but we can't allow you to handle the basketball or shoot the basketball, they'd be great. He'd be great. But that's not Russ. Russ thinks when he's on the floor that he's still capable of going for 40. And he's more likely to airball or literally break the glass on a shot than he is to make one. Although in the first series against the Clippers, he shot it great. He was a turnover machine last night. They had to pull him. And then he makes a big defensive play and a huge driving layup against the pressure late. But this is about Jokic, Murray, and the key supporting players, Gordon, Braun, and Porter. And maybe a guy like Strawther off the bench if Denver's going to use that experience and a short bench to beat an inexperienced but fresher, younger, and deeper team on what will be a crazy home court. Sunday, 3:30, Game 7, second round. This series has been great. I hope we get a really competitive game. I think we'll get a really competitive game, but I'll say what I said earlier in these playoffs. I think Oklahoma City is the best team that I've watched. It's just that this is a sport where typically you have to earn your way, and the more experienced teams end up winning, especially these kinds of games. I think Denver's going to regret blowing Game 5. They had a great opportunity to win that game, and they went cold with a 9-point lead for about a 4-minute stretch that just killed them in that game. But I think Oklahoma City wins Game 7. I'll be rooting for Denver because I want to continue to watch number 15 for the Denver Nuggets, Jokic. The team awaiting them, Minnesota, will not be easy. Another young team. We're seeing a bit of the changing of the guard with Oklahoma City, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, and then Minnesota with Anthony Edwards, in the East, and Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton, and New York with Jalen Brunson. Tonight you get Game 6 in Madison Square Garden, perhaps the most expensive ticket for an NBA game that has ever been. I am not a believer that the Knicks better win tonight. I gave Boston a shot, down 3-1 without Jason Tatum, to win this series. I still thought that they were talented enough to do it. They have a superstar two-way player in Jaylen Brown, the MVP of the NBA Finals last year. I still think Boston can do it, but I don't think that home court, it hasn't mattered. The Knicks took the first two in Boston. Boston took one of the two in New York. If New York loses tonight, I still think they could win Game 7 on Sunday night. But most people think the Knicks better put the Celtics out of their misery tonight, or they're going to lose Game 7. But you could end up with two incredibly tense games between Boston and New York tonight and on Sunday, and you already have a Game 7 with Denver and Oklahoma City set for 3:30 on Sunday. I'm assuming that if it's Boston Knicks in a Game 7, that would be Monday night. How about that? You're going Friday night, Monday night. If the Celtics win tonight, Game 7 is on Monday night. Man, the NBA drags this out a bit. But incredible NBA playoff season. It's not always this way. I enjoy it. I've, expressed my views on that. I think you guys as sports fans who aren't NBA fans, I think you're missing out in a big way on just incredible drama, compelling sports theater during these NBA playoffs. This has been a special postseason with just some intense games and all-time epic performances. All right, enough of that. When we come back, Washington's net rest for their schedule in 2025 is not going to be an advantage for them. I'll explain when we return. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. So we talked yesterday on the show about the schedule, which came out on Thursday night, Wednesday night, and was complete, and we could start to look to see, where and when they played. And one of the things that you have to focus in on is not, getting into, we knew the opponents, the when and where. It's about how it relates to the teams that they're playing and who that team is playing the week before, because that creates something called net rest days. This has been something that's been a big number. Aaron Schatz, among others, have sort of focused on it in recent years. The 49ers, as an example, in 2024 had the worst net rest days in the league, and that their season went to hell in a hand bucket. You had the largest net rest advantage last year was the Lions. They ended up with 15 wins. We've seen the net rest day thing work more often than it doesn't. And the net rest stat, if you will, is essentially the number of days you have over a 17-week season in terms of advantage days of rest heading into a game or a disadvantage in days rest heading into a game. So I'll take you through Washington's schedule and kind of explain what it is. So in week 3, they face the Raiders. The Raiders on September 14th, the week before, play a game, but Washington played the previous Thursday. So after Washington plays Green Bay in week 2 on Thursday Night Football, they have 11 days to prepare for their game in week 3 against Las Vegas. The Raiders only have 7 days to prepare. So Washington actually has a 4-day net rest advantage. And so you go through every week. Not every week is there an advantage or a disadvantage. Week 6, and I pointed this out yesterday after looking at the schedule, 4 of Washington's opponents have bye weeks before Washington plays them. The first one is Chicago. Washington plays Chicago on Monday Night Football, October 13th. Well, the week before, Chicago has a bye week. So Chicago has a +7, or Washington has a -7 day disadvantage going from no bye week to playing a team on their bye week. Then you go to week 7, which is the next week. They play the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. Washington's coming off a Monday night game. They have 6 days to prepare. Dallas is coming off a Sunday game. They have 7 days to prepare. So that's a -1 day disadvantage. Week 9, they play Seattle on a Sunday night. Seattle's got a bye week the week before. -7 days of rest disadvantage. I think this is easy to follow. If not, you can call us at 301-230-0980. We're taking questions on this. But you see, when one team has a bye week before and they're not playing that week and you're playing, they've got a 7-day advantage. They've got 14 days to prepare for that game. You've only got 7, so it's a -7-day net rest number. In week 15, Washington plays the Giants on a Sunday. The Giants are actually coming off a week, the game prior to Washington. They're playing on a Monday night, and then they have a bye week. So it's not 14 days to prepare. It's 13 days to prepare, because their last game going into a bye week is on Monday night. Washington's got a Sunday game. It's -6 days compared to what the Giants have. Week 17, Washington has the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Day. The Washington has a +1 because they're playing on Saturday and Dallas is playing on Sunday. heading into that Christmas Day game. And then in the final week of the season, as of now, Philadelphia and Washington will have, it says here in the net rest thing, it says Washington has a plus 3 day advantage heading into week 18. That doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah, plus 3 days. Washington has the plus 3 days because they played on Christmas Day and Philadelphia played the following Sunday. So Washington is a plus 3 there. The overall number is minus 13 net rest days for Washington's schedule. All right, you add up the Chicago bye week, the Seattle bye week, the Giants coming off a bye week, the short week into the first Dallas game, the longer week into the Philadelphia season finale. You add the longer week heading into the game against the Raiders in week 3. You end up with negative 13 net rest days. There are only 2 teams in the league with a worse situation this year. The Saints are at minus 14, and the Raiders are at minus 19. Those are the 3 worst net rest days in the season. Now, so that is, what you have heading into this season. Actually, last season wasn't what I said it was, because I'm looking at, bear with me, 2024, the team with the best net rest day advantage was Baltimore. And then the second best net rest day advantage teams were Minnesota, Philadelphia, and New England. So 3 out of those 4 teams had tremendous seasons. And by far and away, the worst net rest disadvantage team last year was San Francisco. They had a terrible season. Just something to keep in mind, as you look through this stuff. It matters. Rest matters actually more than travel. That's been kind of proven out. This year, the Lions have the number 1 net rest advantage, followed by Miami, followed by the Rams, 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens, Cowboys, Chargers, Giants, and Philly. Washington, New Orleans, and Vegas with the worst in the league. That's not necessarily, by the way, the result of having all of these primetime games. They only have 2 Monday night games. The primetime games elsewhere are Sunday night games, or in the case of week 2, a Thursday night game. It has to do with the upcoming opponent and whether that opponent had significant rest coming into that game with you on a Sunday night or a Monday night. And Washington is getting the short end of the stick on that. Suck it up. Life's not fair, but there is a big swing, right, from Detroit, who's got the most days of rest, and Vegas, which has the least amount of days. That's a 32-day net rest advantage. Detroit, the best team in the league, over Vegas, the worst team in the league. And Washington, looking at the key teams in the NFC, Detroit's got a 26-day net rest advantage over Washington. San Francisco's got a 22-day net rest day advantage over Washington. Dallas has 18 net rest day advantage over Washington. Philly's got a 17-day net rest advantage over Washington this season. Let me just see where any other key. God, man, most of the teams that have negative net rest disadvantages are all in the AFC this year. Almost all of them. And the NFC teams dominate the net rest edge opportunities, except for Washington and New Orleans, who are at the bottom. So there you go. Just something to keep in mind. Those are, I would consider that to be a legitimate, real takeaway from the schedule. Something that actually proven over time can impact seasons. When you're going into games, too many of them at a significant rest disadvantage, it matters. You know, when you look at Washington's schedule and you do win, win, loss, win, 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 loss, win, loss, loss, win, 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 you got to consider that, you know, in week 3, they're going to have a big advantage over Vegas. But in week 6, they're going to have a massive disadvantage against Chicago. Now, the good news is heading into that Chicago game, you do have that extra day because it's a Monday night game. But then you go to Dallas, and Dallas has the extra day. Washington on a short week and traveling. You know, then you go to week 9, and you're coming off a Monday night game against the Chiefs, and you got to face Seattle at home, and Seattle's coming off a bye week. That's interesting, right? Like that right there would be the one. You're Monday night football, you're exhausted, you just played Mahomes and the Chiefs, and then you're coming home. Who knows what Seattle will be like when we get there? Maybe they'll stink. But you're playing Seattle at home, a game that right now you'd probably be favored in to win, but that may be a tricky spot. One really healthy, rested team, and one team coming in on a short week. Same with the Giants game late in the season. You're playing back-to-back road games, Minnesota on the road, and then you go to New York to face the Giants coming off a bye week. So a few things to consider. I'm still blown away by Philly twice in the final 3 weeks. That's still the biggest surprise to me. I think we all had a clue as to what was coming in terms of primetime and standalone games. Washington, Dallas, Kansas City. The top 3 teams in the league when it comes to combined primetime and standalone games, they all got 8. 8. Dallas still, you know, a massive draw. I think we were expecting that part of it. That just comes with the territory. But man, going to be fun to go through this. Love the start opportunity, though. You know, if I didn't emphasize that enough yesterday, I love the opportunity to kind of start with the Giants, Packers on the road, not easy, Vegas and Atlanta. I got this from Darren in Rockville. I was thinking about this after he sent it to me. He said, Kevin, have we ever seen a faster turnaround in both results and expectations than what the Skins accomplished last year into this year? I can't remember. I mean, 4-13 and a complete train wreck of a franchise. And even though they had number 2 overall, and even though they picked Jaden Daniels, and there was a lot of optimism about Jaden Daniels, nobody has a rookie year like what Jaden Daniels had. And even if they have an outstanding rookie year and you turn it around from 4-13 to, you know, playoff contention, it's not 12-5 in the NFC Championship game. You know, it might be 9-8. What did Houston do in Stroud's first year? 10-7 in a bad division. Bad division. They won the division at 10-7, I think. I think that's what their record was. You know, 4-13 and getting your ass kicked week in and week out. I mean, the roster, the franchise. Of course, Snyder was gone, and that gave everybody hope that things could turn around, but nobody expected that. And then to your point, Darren, the idea that you had a team that in 2024, you know, it had Jaden Daniels, so there were a couple of opportunities. You know, they played that week 3 game on Monday Night Football against the Bengals. You know, you wouldn't have gotten that without the drafting of Jaden Daniels. You know, you got the Thursday night game. Everybody has to get one Thursday night game. So you got the Thursday night game against Philly, but that was it. Everything else was basically, 1 o'clock scheduled until they got flexed into the Sunday night thing with Atlanta late in the season. And then you come back the next year and you've got the most tied with the Chiefs and the Cowboys primetime and stand-alone games. Yeah. I can't think of the Rams. Maybe, the greatest show on turf Rams probably were the biggest turnaround. Didn't they? They were terrible the year before, and they won the Super Bowl. And not only did they win the Super Bowl, they did it with, pizzazz. The greatest show on turf, scoring more points than anybody in the league, lighting it up. Kurt Warner came out of nowhere. They were 4-12 in 98. And then in 99, they went 13-3 and won the Super Bowl. And then in 2000, I would assume, well, they were the favorite going into 2000 to win the whole thing. But I would assume they played multiple Monday night and Sunday night games. Yeah, they had 3 Monday night games that year and 2 Sunday night games that year. That would be the comp. The only difference would be they won the Super Bowl, and Washington just got to the NFC Championship game. Of course, they won the division at 13-3 and got to host those playoff games. So there was that. Yeah, I don't, in terms of, like, if we had all said to each other this time last year, don't worry about it. A lot of 1 o'clocks, a lot of, next year, look out. We're going to be perceived as a contending team, and we're going to be one of the biggest draws in the NFL when the schedule comes out. Yeah, even the most bullish on Jaden Daniels or on Adam Peters, Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Quinn, even the most bullish wouldn't have said, yeah, we're going to the NFC Championship game and then coming back the following year and are going to be thought of as one of the most exciting teams to watch. And we're going to be profiled as much as the Chiefs and the Cowboys. We got higher profile, more profile games than the defending champion Eagles or the team right up the road, the Ravens. Sort of nuts. All right. There was something that Gilbert Arenas said that I wanted to play for everybody about a local player that will be entering the NBA draft. You'll hear what Gilbert said. He's excellent on his podcast next.
All right, the Caps lose 3-1 to Carolina, get bounced in the playoffs in 5 games. First time they've been eliminated in round 2 since 2017. The Nats, they fall 5-2 in a midday matchup versus the Atlanta Braves. They will continue their road trip tonight for a rivalry weekend just up the street versus a struggling Baltimore Orioles ball club. The Nats on deck pregame starts at 6:35 right after Grant and Danny on the Fan. Nuggets, they beat the Thunder 119-107 to force Game 7. They had 3 players with 20 or more points. Jokic put up 29, 14, and 8. Christian Brown, 23, 11, and 5. And Jamal Murray, 25, 8, and 7. The PGA Championship is currently underway from Quail Hollow. Max Homa has surged up the leaderboard. He is now in, let's let the scoreboard load up a little bit. He is -6 on the day. He sits at 4 under. He's tied for 5th. He's up 68 spots on the leaderboard. In first is Jonathan Vegas. He sits at 7 under. Matthew Pavone sits at 5 under, and along with JJ Spawn, Ryan Gerard, and Michael Torbjornsen. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
Maryland finally hired an athletic director, a methodical, patient process, and it seems like, according to the people that I've talked to, they've landed on a good one. Jim Smith will replace Damon Evans at Maryland as its new athletic director. He comes from the Atlanta Braves most recently, where he served as the senior VP of business strategy, but he's been involved with sports for 2 decades, including at Ohio State, where he was president and CEO of the school's alumni association, which, by the way, happens to be one of the largest such organizations on the planet, with 80 employees and an operating budget of $17 million, according to the Washington Post. Yeah, I can imagine that Ohio State's got a very passionate school alumni base and an association to manage that. But Smith comes in with professional experience, with college experience in the Big Ten. He said, quote, "It is a great honor to be chosen to lead the athletics department at the University of Maryland and to guide Maryland's storied programs into the next era. I am highly motivated to build upon excellence and lead Maryland forward in a dynamic and pivotal time for intercollegiate athletics with a sharp focus on student-athlete health, well-being, and academic success." Look, I can speak for many, many Maryland fans because I am one, and alums. We just hope that there is a recognition that while football is very important, the passion from the fan base is most directed towards men's basketball. Football certainly pays the bills more so than basketball does because it's a Big Ten school, and the Big Ten gobs of money comes in with that television deal. But we certainly need more attention paid to what this fan base, and it's unique in that basketball has always been number one. I want football to be great too. I'm not saying ignore football. I love when Maryland football's good. Love it. And there have been moments during my lifetime. And Mike Loxley's done a decent job. They went to 3 straight bowl games and won all of them. So I'd love to see football be great too, but we had an issue more so with lack of recognition, multiple athletic directors, that the fans, the alums, you see it every year. You see what Xfinity Center looks like for a big opponent versus what the Shell looks like for a big opponent. But congrats to the crew that did the search and the search committee that helped out the whole thing. Let's hope Jim Smith is a good one. So Max sent me something this morning. It was Derek Queen, Maryland's freshman superstar who's entered the draft. Out at the NBA draft combine, there are some quotes about his performance at the draft combine. On threes, Jamie Shaw believes Queen's draft stock is falling because, quote, "The NBA draft combine confirmed the eye test about Derek Queen's athleticism. While it was already known that Queen was a less than average athlete, his testing numbers finished even worse than expected. Queen finished with a reported 12.45 lane agility drill, giving him the 3rd lowest score in the previous 5 years of the NBA draft combine. His 28-inch reported maximum vertical leap would have finished tied with Peyton Sanford, I think he went to Iowa, as the 2nd lowest total last year. The NBA draft combine also showed that Queen has not been able to clean up the hitch in his jump shot from high school. I don't think there's a hitch necessarily. He shot 20% from 3 this season and made only 45% of his 111 recorded shots here at the combine. Off dribble, spot up, 3-point star, 3-point side, and free throw. Decision making is an interesting stat with Queen as well, as he finished with 67 assists to 85 turnovers this season with high usage. Dating back to high school over his last 2 seasons played, Queen has 125 assists to 137 turnovers. So there is a belief that the combine has not treated Derek Queen well. Be careful about viewing agility and athleticism Derek Queen is a unique player. He's highly skilled. He's high IQ. He is, as he was billed when he came into college, he's not, a tear down the rim athlete. He is, they referred to him as Baby Jokic. That is quite the compliment. I think we saw some of that at times watching him this year. Gilbert Arenas does a podcast with Matt Barnes. Gilbert Arenas actually is a great, analyst, I think, of basketball. John Wall's also become very good at it too, for what it's worth. But anyway, this was Gilbert Arenas talking recently about Derek Queen on his podcast with Matt Barnes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the big kid. He listed at 6'10" and a half, which is crazy. He's like a Jokic. He's Queen
from Maryland, right?
Yeah,
he's a problem.
Yeah,
I like his skill set. Yeah.
What's so funny is it's whoever gets him, you got to steal. And if you're not a smart general manager, he will slip in a draft like Jokic did. When you're in these drafts and you're playing one by yourself, you're not going to see his skill set, right? The skill set that he has is a 5-on-5 game.
Team setting.
So you're sitting there playing by himself, sitting here doing this. You don't see his vision. You can't see none of that. He looks too slow. You can't see how he plays his body, right? So if I'm San Antonio with the 2 pick, I'm
not mad at that.
That might be the guy that I actually would, because he is a. If you think about Spurs are still old school where they've dominated with 2 bigs. I have a low post big with him that's 7 foot with his shoes on, and then I have 7'6" guy who's I don't know what the fuck he is, right? 2, 3, 4, 1, whatever, right? That's him. So the fact that I can play inside out with these 2, I think the Spurs probably go after him.
Be interesting. I'm definitely.
It's you already got guard play, right? And then most of the guards, you got Harper, you have VJ, you have Trey.
You can dump it.
I have that already. I don't
think he says much more about Queen. It's such smart insight. I wonder if teams actually really do get duped by, the combine results. Get duped by, he's not very athletic. What do we do with him? I mean, Jokic was, evaluated probably the same way coming over from Serbia. He is that kind of style player. He is a guy that makes everybody around him better with his vision, with his feel for the game, with his hands. He's got phenomenal hands. It'd be a big mistake if somebody just looked at these combine results. I can't imagine teams do that anymore. They're just at the combine rather than watching him in the team's biggest games this year. I mean, this guy is a player, period. And I thought Gil's analysis was so spot on when he said, you're never going to see a player like this and what his ability is without watching him 5-on-5. That's how they play basketball, by the way. They play 5-on-5. They're not playing 1-on-1. They're not playing agility or shooting drills or ball handling drills. His 5-on-5 IQ and feel for the game is off the charts. His, ability to kind of size up where a ball's coming off a rim. And then, by the way, with his hands, great hands, his catches in the post, his passing. He's going to be a really good player at the NBA level. I would love it if he slipped to 6. I don't see San Antonio taking him at number 2, but who knows? Maybe they're smart, like Gilbert Arenas suggested you got to be to take him that high. Cooper Flagg's going number 1, and I do think that Dylan Harper's going 2. I think that I like Trey Johnson a lot from Texas. I've just been paying a little bit more attention to sort of the players that are mocked very high and been mocked to the Wizards. This guy's going to be a great NBA shooter in a difficult matchup, I think, on both ends. But I like Queen a lot if he's there at 6. The player I don't like is Ace Bailey from Rutgers. I watch too much of Big Ten basketball, too much of Rutgers, and I saw a guy that just didn't have the compete that you'd want to see. That sometimes is the difference because there are a lot of 6'10", long-armed athletes. Derek Queen just is a basketball player. He's going to make your team much better. Is he going to be a superstar like Jokic? I don't know. I don't. The hitch in his shot, there's no hitch necessarily. He didn't shoot it consistently, in part because he didn't shoot it a lot. But he had some big ones this year when he did shoot it. They just had too many shooters on that team this year. Ben Standig will join me next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Today, following this show, Ben Standig is in for Chris Russell. He'll be hosting 1 to 4. He's got Nikki Javala on the show. He's got Steve Wino on the show. He's got Fred Katz to talk NBA playoffs on the show. So stay tuned. 1 to 4 today, right here on the Team 980. Ben Standig sitting in for one Christopher Rooster Russell. So your thoughts on the schedule? I haven't talked to you since it came out.
Ben's currently in he's getting set in the chair. We just got in the room. We're getting all set up. He's grabbing his headphones now. I had to turn off I turned the speaker down because he wanted to just make sure that
a little bit of chop today on the show.
A little bit of chop.
We'll get through it. Well, everybody's still breathing.
It's true.
Everybody's
we're
still
moving
breathing.
along.
Nobody's dying.
Yeah,
not yet anyway.
We're moving along like that guy sailing from Oregon to Hawaii. I don't know if you've seen that guy at all. He
sold, basically cashed out his 401k and just set a sail. Seems like a good idea. One of these days, maybe. Although that wouldn't be my preference to get on a boat.
No, for sure not.
Do we have them now?
We're still trying to work on headphones.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sometimes at a radio station, headphones aren't available. That happens every once in a while. Can I get some headphones? Seems like there should be 4 or 5 pairs just sitting around for people to come in and sit in studio. Not always the case.
Fortunately, we have one sitting right behind me. So he's putting them on now, getting them plugged in. We should be just getting ready to go. He's searching for the jack. Do I need to help him find the jack? He's looking. Okay. It might be under the desk.
We don't need play-by-play. Just into my ear, tell me he's ready.
All right.
Tonight, by the way, in Game 6 between the Celtics and the Knicks at the Garden, I've already talked about the outrageous prices to get into the arena. This will be Super Bowl level aftermarket ticket prices. But the Celtics tonight are a 2.5-point underdog. It's just the 3rd time in their last 50 playoff games that they're not favored. That's crazy. They were a 2.5-point dog last year in Game 3 in the NBA Finals. And in Game 4 at Miami in 2023, they were a dog at Miami. Boston won both of those games outright. But still, 50-plus playoff games, takes into consideration, I don't know, probably 18, 36, probably 2.5 to 3 years of playoff games. You play a lot of those games on the road, and they've been favored still in most of them. I don't like a side tonight in the game. It would not surprise me if Boston wins. But I said this earlier. I'm not one of those that believes that if Boston wins tonight, the series is over. I don't think the Knicks have to win tonight. They've already won twice in Boston. And coming back from 3-1 down is a tough chore. So if the Knicks lose tonight, wouldn't surprise me if they do. I'd still give them a chance in Game 7. All right, Ben, is he ready? Do we have Ben ready? Okay, we're going to just put him on the phone because we can't hook him up in a radio studio. Let's make sure he's ready to go at 1 o'clock. That's for sure. Sounds like we have you finally.
I am here. Apologies.
It's okay.
This is what happens. This is what happens when you have a print guy talking. We're good.
You just can't find a pair of headphones that work?
There's a lot going on here, Kevin. Look, this is what happens when you put a print guy in a studio. But yeah, we'll be good for 1 o'clock. Me filling in for Russell, we'll be good by then. At this moment, little goofy. This is like preseason. This is like this is like a joint practice. We got to work out the kinks.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's get them worked out before 1 o'clock because everybody will be tuned in. Ben Standig's joining me. Ben will be in for Russell at 1 o'clock here on the Team 980 today, 1 to 4. Ben, of course, writes for The Athletic. He's got a podcast called Last Man Standing, and you can follow Ben on X on Twitter at Ben Standing. So what did you think of the schedule?
Yeah, look, we already obviously, of course, knew the opponents, and now it's just a matter of the order. But I think, like you probably already went through this when you were doing your mock schedule, and I hadn't done it. So when you see it laid out, it just reminds you how much more challenging it is going to be this year. I think just in general, they need to start out strong because it's pretty clear that on paper, the quote unquote easiest part of their schedule is that first 7 weeks, really the first like 3 or 4 weeks. Other than like the Green Bay game, they mostly are playing against teams that didn't make the playoffs last year. So you've got to take advantage of that. But when you get like weeks 4 through 8, 4 of those 5 games are on the road, including Dallas, Kansas City, back to back at the end of it. And then, that's also where the gauntlet of these national TV games start. So, and before we even get to the end of the season, right? Before we even get to the 4 consecutive games to close the year against division foes, they are, you got to hold your business. You got to do what you got to do early on for those games to even matter. So it's going to be tough. Again, we knew it would be regardless. It's just that now we see it, and we see the order. And I heard you earlier talking about the rest situation, the fact that they have 4 games against teams coming off a bye. One of those, the game against Denver, they have the same bye, but they're not going to win the rest battle in that regard. So a lot of things went their way right last year. This year, it's off the bat some more challenges to deal with.
Yeah, I think this is always one of the Warren Sharp does much of the legwork on this, and he put out his results early this morning. Washington's got the 3rd worst net rest number in the league, and by the way, many of the NFC contenders, including Detroit, the Rams, the 49ers, the Eagles, if you want to throw the Cowboys in there, you don't have to, all have positive net rest day advantages. Washington has the 3rd worst, 2nd worst in the NFC behind New Orleans. And this has been an actual study and number that has equated to, performance over the course of a season, much more so than, say, travel does. So it is interesting to look at it. The 49ers had the worst net rest disadvantage ever recorded by Sharp's study last year, and they had a disastrous season. Detroit had the best. Baltimore had the best last year, and they had a very good season. So, yeah, it's interesting the way that works out. Not to mention just the teams that they're playing are more likely than not. You don't know that today because you don't know what it'll look like when we get there. But they look better. And to your point, and I've been making this as well, they just are playing teams that have better offenses and better quarterbacks than they had last year. So to me, it comes down, Ben, now that we've got the schedule, now that we've got most of the offseason completed, to me, the number one area of mystery is the defense, and it will be the difference between 9 or 10 wins and maybe 11 or 12 or 13 in a legitimate chance to go to the Super Bowl. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I love how now the range is not even under 500. Which
it shouldn't be
right
with this
there,
offense.
No, I'm with you. I'm just saying, that's, you mentioned San Francisco, right? A team that was obviously, viewed as arguably the best team in the conference, and then they just went belly up for a variety of reasons. But yeah, no, look, I agree. The defense is the question. I mean, offensively, we get it. They add, 2 offensive tackles and Deebo Samuel. That alone is a pretty strong. Those are pretty strong additions to a group that was already, one of the highest scoring teams in the league. And Jaden Daniels, should be only ascending. The defense, it feels like the moves that they made, especially on the defensive line, are more on the margins. Guys like Dietrich Wise should help. Javon Kinlaw should help in terms of the run game, but they don't have an obvious pass rusher coming off the defensive end. I mean, I'm not counting Frankie Louvu in there, but we'll see. I mean, nobody saw Dante Fowler doing what he did last year. Nobody saw a lot of what happened with this team positively last year. But yeah, the defense is definitely a bit of a mystery. And then the intangibles. You can't, it's impossible to quantify what that means. But when you win the last 5 regular or 5 games in a row late in the year on the last play from scrimmage, when you have the Hail Mary, when you're pretty healthy for most of the year, like you can't predict those things are going to happen. You can't assume that they will positively happen. But that's the other variable. But the defense one is the tangible one for sure.
Yeah, you also can't say, oh, there's a regression to the mean. I hear that all the time with people on the air talking about sports. They clearly never took stats and probability 101. But beyond that, sure, it seems unlikely that they'll win 5 games in walk-off fashion, but maybe those 5 this coming season will be double-digit wins. To assume that, well, they're not going to win 5 walk-off games, so they're going to end up with a worse record doesn't make any sense. If you believe that this team is potentially better next year, they could win several of those games without sweating it if the defense improves, or if the offense is even better than it was last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this is a analogous to some of what we see in the NBA when the Knicks get the Celtics late in a close game. That's when their moxie has prevailed. But Boston, blew them out in Game 5. I think it's sort of the same thing with OKC and Denver a little bit. Denver's got more experience. OKC, but has the better overall talent. So yeah, it doesn't always have to come down to the end. It's just that we know in the NFL, typically that is how it comes down. It is typically, one possession games or one score games, or one possession. You know what I mean? One score games. So I mean that's the question. Look, I think this is the great thing of having a guy like Jaden Daniels is that we can go through all the different scenarios, right? But if you have that guy, that is what lifts you up. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs offense last year was not very impressive, and yet because you have Mahomes, you always have a guy who can make the plays and pull you out of the fire, and that's what they have in Jaden Daniels. So yeah, I mean that's the point. It isn't just to put up 300 yards; it's to offset your negatives, and if he continues to ascend, he should be doing that for years to come.
What's your favorite part of the schedule, and then what do you view as the most difficult part of the schedule, at least as of today?
Well, I mean, the most difficult part, maybe this is a little bit long, but like that, sort of on the road at Dallas, Kansas City, and then you get into Seattle here on a Sunday night, and then on my right is Detroit, and then Miami and Madrid.
Right.
Like, not that, I mean, Dallas and Miami are not necessarily heavyweights, but, both of those games, one's on the road, one's in a different place. And then all those other teams, Seattle didn't make the playoffs, but they were like the next team out. That is a really tough stretch. And then going into that's going into the bye week. So, I feel like that, like assuming that they can come out of it, let's say at a minimum 4-3 through week 7, that next stretch there probably determines whether they have a winning record going into the bye or not, or better than a winning record. So I think that part to me is the real challenge. And I don't know, it's my favorite part. And I actually don't even, I think I heard you talk about this. I don't love at all the Eagles facing the Eagles, not until week 16 and then twice in 3 weeks. I don't like that at all. But if it does come down where, the Washington and Philly or Dallas or the Giants are in the mix, if it does come down to the stretch run, then that's going to be pretty exciting to have 4 games in the division, whether you're trying to make up ground or fend these teams off. All those division games always have meaning, and these could have extra because of the potential playoff ramifications.
2021, they finished with 5 consecutive division games, and they had that 4-game winning streak. They upset Brady in Tampa at home. They beat Russ in Seattle on a Monday night. They beat the Raiders in Vegas. They were 500. They actually were playing pretty well. They were good defensively in 21, even better in 22. And then COVID hit after they lost to the Cowboys, and it was like Garrett Gilbert. Was that his name? Garrett Gilbert? I think that's what his name was.
Yep.
And they had, players out with COVID, and it didn't end up being that. Now, this year, the reason I don't like the Philadelphia situation could work out well for Washington. Although if Philly has nothing to play for, that means Washington probably is playing for a wild card spot. But I'm that to me is a tough stretch, maybe not, but just is a weird stretch. I'm shocked that they didn't put the first Philly game at some point earlier in the season in prime time. That was the biggest surprise to me. But yeah, All right. That stretch you talked about too, that starts with Dallas. It actually starts with the Chargers. They go Chargers, then Monday night Chicago, short week into Dallas, KC, Seattle, Detroit, Madrid, and then they finally hit their bye week. Oh, one other thing, Ben, that I didn't point out as you were talking about various teams. You know, they play the quarterback draft of 2024. The only after this year, the only quarterback that Jaden will not have faced off against is Drake May, New England, because they get Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and J.J. McCarthy this year in matchups against Jaden Daniels. So 4 out of the 5 that he could face, because it was 6, right? 6 quarterbacks taken top 12. Yeah.
No, for sure.
What's next, if anything? You calling regularly people, agents on Trey Hendrickson?
I mean, I've checked in enough. I mean, clearly at this point, it's just, it's in the Bengals, and how are they really not? Are they going to be stubborn all the way, or is this their negotiating tactic? And even for Hendrickson, I mean, his salary is obviously, he's a very underpaid for the production that he's put up the last couple of years in particular. But it is still, millions of dollars. You're going to, sitting. Here's the thing, right now, unless they've changed the rule this offseason, the teams can't eliminate the fines that players are going to get for missing, training camp and things like that. So, like, at some point, they're going to have to make a call. Is it worth it to keep sitting out? I mean, if I'm the Bengals, I think I'm going to have to keep Hendrickson one way or the other at this point. Like, what's the point? You're going to trade him for future picks? Like, what's that doing for you? You're trying to win now. So I think ultimately they probably figure something out, would be my best guess. But as of now, there's no movement anywhere, because the Bengals are, as Hendrickson kind of said about his own situation, just, there's nothing happening. And I think that goes in terms of the teams possibly looking to make a trade as well.
All right. I know that you're watching the NBA playoffs. Do you think the Knicks close out the Celtics tonight or not?
I mean, I would think so. Here's the thing with Boston. Like, they have enough depth that, like, whereas for most teams, if you lose a player like Jason Tatum, you're pretty much, toast, right? I mean, Golden State lost Steph Curry. I'm not comparing him to Tatum necessarily, but, they lost him, and that was it for that series. The Celtics still have, Jaylen Brown, right, was the Finals MVP. Derek White was on the Olympic team. Drew Holiday, he's been not really the Drew Holiday we've seen in the past so far in these playoffs, I would say. But okay, he's obviously a very formidable player, and we'll see where Kristaps Porzingis is with his illness that's kind of kept him limited the last few games. But they have enough talent to keep this going.
I agree.
But it's in New York. I mean, like, I didn't actually watch the last game, so I don't quite know if it was the Celtics were great or the Knicks just laid down because they were looking past it. But, Jalen Brunson, I just don't see that. I don't see him losing in this game 6 in New York. So, I think it's definitely possible that the Celtics win, but I'll go Knicks tonight to close it out.
And then do you give Denver a shot at OKC?
I do. I thought a key to the game yesterday, I mean, beyond just, Jokic is great and Jamal Murray was really good, is, it drives me absolutely crazy when coaches shrink their rotations to like 6 or maybe 7 guys in the playoffs. These are NBA players. I get that some of them are not as good as, your starters, and some guys, get deer in the headlights when you get to the postseason. But these are NBA players. You're making your whole team too tired for the stretch run when you're playing them 45 minutes a game. And I think that's kind of what happened to Denver in games 4 and 5. They just looked exhausted by the time they got to the end, and then they fell apart. Yesterday, Julian Strawther not only plays some good minutes, but contributes in a big way. Peyton Watson as well. They went 8 deep. And then sure enough, Jokic didn't even have to play the whole fourth quarter. And sure enough, Denver looked fresher down the stretch than OKC. So I just think, to me, if Denver can, stay fresh, if they can stick to that rotation, I think they've got a real shot. And again, if you get to the end of the game, I like my chances with Jokic and Murray more than I would that younger OKC team. It's easy to say take the home team, and I certainly would probably if you made me pick. But yeah, I absolutely think Denver has a chance. The fascinating is you get the two guys who are the top two MVP candidates going head to head in a game 7. This is the kind of matchup that you live for. To have that type of scenario going, and I would love to see Jokic keep going.
Vote's completed, correct?
Correct. Playoffs has nothing to do with this, right?
Yeah,
with that vote, yeah.
Right. But whoever wins this 7th deciding game is going to be maybe remembered more so. Yeah, it's interesting the point you make about the bench. They just don't have a very good bench. I love Strother and what he did last night. Westbrook is an absolute walking, and running and sprinting time bomb. He's going to make a great play on defense and kick up a lot of dust there. And then on the other end, he's going to think he's, capable of going for 45, and he's going to shoot maybe the worst looking air ball from 4 feet that you've ever seen, or he's going to clank it off the backboard so hard you're concerned about glass breaking. He is, I think, a net minus for them. And I think they got to be careful about playing him too much on Sunday. He played great against the Clippers. I mean, it was otherworldly for him. It was a throwback to many, many years ago. But he had 3 turnovers on 3 straight possessions at the end of the first quarter. He just can't slow his brain down, which then in turn means he can't slow his body down. And it works on defense. It does not work on offense in the postseason. It just doesn't.
No, I mean, look, there's no argument in general. I do think Westbrook he's impressed me with, he has avoided as much hero ball as we have seen in the past. He does seem to recognize that Jokic is the guy and Jamal Murray. But my thing is, I think Michael Porter, who I think is a mental midget generally, now he's got this shoulder injury. He's a massive net negative. He's doing nothing for them
he was
anywhere.
In Game 5. He killed them in Game 5. He had a couple of big threes last night that were important, and he was awesome in Game 1. I think it was Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, he gets paid insane money to not just be good. He gets paid crazy money to not just be good so often. So
he crushed them.
So I think Westbrook almost, that's the thing. I think Westbrook almost has to play more because at least his energy is a real thing. And that's, again, the thing with like a Strother or a Peyton Watson. Like, they may be a better option than Porter late because at least if they can bring the energy, if they're not intimidated playing on the road, that may be more than Porter. And that's, again, what makes Denver so fascinating. They're doing all this despite no bench. I mean, Westbrook, okay, but at best 6 guys, and then one of your starters is at best neutral, and to me he's a negative in Porter. And yet Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon have gotten this thing to a game 7. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do against the deepest team and probably the most talented team head to toe in the league. That just the Thunder just don't have that veteran presence. And we'll see. This is where they got knocked out in this round last year. We'll see if they can step it up.
Yeah, your point's a good one. Like, to me, they win Sunday if they get a combination of 40 plus points from Gordon, Porter, Brown, or Strother, something like that. Like, they've got to have Strother and Christian Brown last night stepped up. They combined for Strother at 15. What did Brown have? 23. So 38. That was the difference really in the game. They've got to get that because you're going to get 30 plus from Jokic. You're going to get Murray's best, but they draw so much of the attention that the other guys have to knock down some of those shots, and it won't be Westbrook. I'd be shocked if it is. He's not afraid to take them. That's for sure. I mean, he's something else, man. But at the same time, this too. He's beloved in that locker room. They love him. They love him everywhere he goes. I think people had the wrong impression of Westbrook for so many years that he may have been an issue. Maybe he was with Durant, but the locker room, everywhere he goes, falls in love with his work ethic and his leadership. All right, what else?
I don't think it's ever been his personality that's been the rub. It's the he thinks he does his terrible decision making at times, and that he thinks he can do it all. And I think that's what's driven teams crazy. It's why he's why it was insane when the Lakers traded for him. He's a terrible fit next to LeBron. We all knew that in real time, except for apparently the Lakers or LeBron, who I think wanted him. So, but yeah, so he's a massive wild card. There is no doubt about it. But yeah, it should be a fun one. And these playoffs have been interesting. And I heard you say this before. Especially if Denver loses, this does feel like we've hit finally the changing of the guard. There's going to be no LeBron, no Steph, no Durant. None of that. None of the guys who've been the big stars recently. We're looking now, Indiana, the Knicks, who've been out of the picture for years now. Minnesota was in this spot last year, but they're still an up and coming team. And OKC. This does feel like a changing of the guard. That's both good for the NBA and also scary because we got to see if the population is willing to accept an NBA that is not focused on those guys that they've followed for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Murray's 28 and Jokic is 30. Denver, theoretically, with a better bench, should still be in the mix in the coming years. But you're right. I mean, and I don't know what would have happened had Steph stayed healthy. That series would still be going. I know that. Would they have beaten Minnesota? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if you end up with Oklahoma City and Indiana or Minnesota and Indiana in the NBA Finals, it is going to be the least watched NBA Finals or championship of any sport of all time. And yet it really will be a reflection of the changing of the guard, because certainly the Western Conference champion is going to have a superstar on the team. And, you could argue that Halliburton is in that class as well for Indiana. All right, man. Thanks. Have a good show. We'll be listening 1 to 4, Ben Standing today right here on this station. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, man. I'll get my headset straightened out by then.
Yeah, work on that. All right. Want to go back to the Caps here, and I want to ask the following question of Caps fans at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. You had a season in which there were no expectations. The odds of Ovechkin breaking the record this year were less than 50-50. The chance that this team would be a playoff team, that was questionable heading into the season last October. They won 51 games. They ended up with the best record in the East. They ended up with the overall home ice advantage in the East, second best record in the entirety of the NHL. They won a series in 5 games over Montreal, the first series they've won since 2018, the year they won the Stanley Cup. And then they went out in 5 games against Carolina. I want you to describe it in these ways. Number one, major disappointment of a season because of the way it ended. 2, you're really not feeling it either way, that it was, it balanced out. You had a great regular season with Ovechkin, but a disappointing postseason, so you call it essentially benign even. And then lastly, you think, no, this was wildly successful. They overachieved based on initial expectations in every way. They won a playoff series for the first time. I can live with it. 301-230-0980. Where are you? Majorly disappointed with the season because of the early exit? Really don't feel it one way or the other? Or no, this was a very successful season because they overachieved at every turn and they won a playoff series for the first time in 7 years. 301-230-0980. Phone lines are open. Caps calls. Kevin Sheehan Show. The Team 980, the team980.com. We're free and live on the Odyssey app. Caps are out, losing last night 3-1. There was an empty netter at the end. A goal with 1:59 left was the dagger. Crowd went silent. They pressed. They tried to get it done, tried to get the equalizer. I thought that their effort was, more than acceptable last night. I thought it was actually the best game that they had played, certainly the best period. They outshot Carolina in the game 51-49 in terms of shot attempts. That was what they were on the wrong side of for much of this series. It's not the, typical they went out meekly, in my opinion, but they went out in 5 to a team that won far fewer games in the regular season than they did. But what do you think, Caps fans? How would you describe the 2024-2025 season? Successful, disappointing, or neither one of those two things? Somewhere in between. 301-230-0980. 15 times out of 16 seasons in the postseason, Washington is out before the conference finals during the Alex Ovechkin era. Of course, they won the Cup in the lone season in which they weren't out in the second round or first round, and then they did miss the playoffs altogether in 2 different seasons. 301-230-0980. Let's start with Jeff in Rockville. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Good, Jeff.
Good. So really enjoy your show. Really enjoy your insights. Missing Denton a little bit. Hope he's doing well.
He's doing great.
Yeah,
Talked to him the other day.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's disappointing with the Cap. And I will say that, if you talk to and I've been a Caps fan since they came into the league, the defense to me was where the issues were. I mean, Carolina was the better team. There's no question. But when you look at how Carlson played, when you look how Chychrun played, even though they both scored goals, the defensive play and moving the puck out of their zone was just absolutely abhorrent. I mean, they were terrible. The number of turnovers. And so I think they have what they need moving forward. They've got a great front office. They've got a great coach. They've got great leadership in Ovechkin and Wilson and other guys. But I think it's their defense that needs to be worked on. I mean, these guys just laid eggs. And I don't know if Carlson was hurt or not, but, man, he was terrible during this series. That's all I got. I appreciate you, Kevin, and your insights. And, let's hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the call. Carlson did have a goal, right? Didn't he have a goal in the game they won in Game 2? Was that the game he had the goal in?
I'm trying to rack my brain to remember. I think it was.
I know he scored a goal in this series. Pretty sure he did. Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to our guy, Kevin. Let's go to Kevin in Arlington. Kevin, go ahead. Successful, disappointing. How would you describe the season that just ended?
Successful to wildly successful. But Jeff, you just called. You're crazy about Chychrun. Yes, the Alexiev was no replacement for Faravari. Carlson looked as old as Ovi in this season. Yes, we in this series we need an upgrade at the defensive end. But I think it's basically to trash Chychrun, particularly after looking like Cale Makar last night. That's crazy. All right,
he was great. Number 6? Number 6, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I said to Joe B, was there a better player on the ice for the Caps last night than him?
No.
He said no.
So, again, I don't know what game Jeff was watching. Yeah, I mean, everybody, Jeff, struggles with Carolina. They are the best. I have never seen a team in any sport press like Carolina does since Coach Big John Thompson's 84 national champion points. Okay? They're the best press team I've ever seen. Yeah. And they're playing the best they've ever played. And their goalie, who's never healthy but finally is one of the best in the world. So full credit to them. And you know what? Like the Eagles in our division, right, who've been to 3 Super Bowls in 7 years, Carolina hasn't had that level of success, but they are the team to beat in the Metro. They have been since both the Penguins and the Capitals kind of went into, decline. But guess what? We're back, and our pipeline is stoked. The future is so bright. My only concern is I don't think John Carlson and Alex Ovechkin in Elite 8 hockey, when you're playing the best, fastest teams, I think their age and slowness is terribly exposed. And it's just a fact. So, you know what? They're going to eventually age out. We got players in this pipeline. I'm thrilled about the future.
Thanks, Kev. As always, Carlson did have a goal in the game. They won game 2. So I did remember that correctly. Let's go to our guy Joe in Arlington. Joe, describe the Caps season now that it's over. Successful, disappointing, or any other way you want to describe it?
Yeah, I'm in the middle somewhere. I thought it was entertaining, I guess, but I didn't have much expectation. And I think if they ended up playing Florida, they would have got swept in the next round. But, my concern is, and I'm not as hopeful about their future as your previous caller. My take is that they're doing kind of a plug-and-play approach to try to stay competitive while Ovi's still around. But they are getting older, and they have to get younger and faster. I think at some point they're going to have to, maybe after Ovi's gone at the end of next year, they're going to have to say, look, it's time to rebuild. I mean, the plug-and-play approach is only going to go so far. They were more competitive this year than people thought, but they were not elite, and they're not going to be elite until they do a serious rebuild, in my case. But anyway,
I was curious. Would they have been? They would have been a massive underdog against Florida in the conference finals had they made it there, right?
Florida's a very good team. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Jeff. You're Joe. Your phone's breaking up a little bit. Let's go to our guy Lou in DC. Lou, go ahead.
What's going on, Kevin? Man,
what's up, Lou?
I mean, to me, they've been the best team the entire season. So for them to come up short, this is once again another disappointing season. And, watching Ovi and 74, they just seem like they back to the old days, just being, I don't know, the lack of understanding it's a playoff game and they just playing kind of like a preseason game. Ovi with one stick up and just running around. I'm like, come on, dude, you can't. I mean, you literally cost it's like when you have Ovi on the ice, it's kind of like 5-on-4 type of thing for the other team. It's like, I mean, what are we doing? When we have a power play, we can't even get in their zone. But when Carolina have a power play, they just sit in our zone and find a way to try to score. But it's just, it's the trend. They've been doing this for the past 15 years, and again, it cost them a playoff game. It cost them a series. I mean, it felt like they was just in the preseason mode, and Carolina was playing like their life depend on it. It was like a 3-1.
I did not. That's the opposite take that I had when it comes to last night. I thought the Caps played. I thought the Caps were, in watching that game, I thought they were the better team last night. It doesn't always translate in hockey. Look, Carolina was the better team for the series. There's no doubt about that. The better team won. But I thought last night that was not a go out without a fight performance. I thought they gave I thought they had a lot of energy last night and they just couldn't score. But I thought last night, whether it was ice time, shot attempts, they outshot Carolina last night in shot attempts. I mean, that alone, that statistic alone tells you that this was not, a go out playing preseason hockey performance. It's the opposite, I thought, of what they did last night. You're entitled to your opinion, and Lou, I love you, but I thought last night, especially in the third period, the urgency and the energy level and the activity was out of desperation, yes, but I at least admired the fact that they went out swinging a little bit. They just couldn't score. But I didn't see a preseason effort last night. Let's go to did Lou want to follow up?
We may have dropped him a little.
Let's go to Ron in Ashburn. Ron, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Sure. What's up, Ron?
I wanted to say most people are going to probably agree with this, that we learned that we're getting older at critical spots, and we're going to start buying those name jerseys. We all know who we're talking about. We got to get better on defense. And what you said just there was, in the third period, they came on like gangbusters. I'm paraphrasing, but that sounds like what you're saying. The problem is, when you're in an elimination game, you got to do that from the opening drop throughout the first period and let Carolina know that this is not going to be easy, and we're not playing the same game that we've been playing for the other four games. And unfortunately, you expect him to play like crazy in the third period with 10 minutes to go. But the reality is that should have been the first period, in my mind. So I'll listen to what you have to say. Take care.
Yeah, I thought it was after maybe the first part of the first period. I thought it was in the second period too. You know, they scored that goal. Unfortunately, it was offsides. They had opportunities. I thought Logan Thompson had some unbelievable saves last night. I don't think that, for me, and I'm not a hockey guy, I would not describe last night's game as going out without a fight, going out meekly. You know, that was a 1-1 game with 2 minutes to go. The goal that won it for Carolina, I mean, we see this in hockey all the time. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm not trying to take the Caps off the hook, but it's not one of those, you know, the Caps turn the puck over in their own zone and, you know, there was 3 deflections and 3 opportunities because nobody moved somebody away from their goaltender. It was just kind of fluky. And it went in. I mean, so be it. I mean, maybe that's a bad goal to give up or whatever. And Carolina did a great job all series long of just putting the puck in the general area of the net, and they scored more than the Caps did. You know, I just didn't see last night as, yeah, we're out of it. We're packing our bags. We're getting ready to go play golf in Florida and in South Carolina and the Caribbean for vacation. I thought they put up a fight last night. That would be my interpretation. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll take a few more calls on this. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
All right, as we've been talking about all morning, the Caps fall 3-1 to Carolina. You get bounced out of the playoffs in 5 games from round 2. First time they've been eliminated in the second round since 2017. The Nats, they fall 5-2 in a midday matchup to the Atlanta Braves. The Nats will continue their road trip tonight for rivalry weekend just up the street versus a struggling Baltimore Orioles club. Nats on deck starts at 6:35, right after Grant and Danny on the Fan. Nuggets, they beat the Thunder 119-107 to force a Game 7. They had 3 players with 20-plus points. Jokic put up 29, 14, and 8. Christian Brown, 23, 11, and 5. And Jamal Murray, 25, 8, and 7. PGA Championship still underway from Quail Hollow. Quick update. Jonathan Vegas still at the top of the leaderboard at 9 under. Michael Torbjornsen at 6 under, along with Matthew Pavone. Max Homa tied for 4th at 5 under. And where is Bryson DeChambeau? He is climbing up the leaderboard. He is at 3 under, tied for 12th. He's had back-to-back birdies on holes 3 and 4, and he is currently finishing out the last 3 of his final 18. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman's from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
All right, we got a quick minute here. Lots of callers on hold to sum up the Caps season. Disappointing, successful, something else. Rudy and Glen Burnie. Rudy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, look, I think they had a good season. I think they got Ovechkin past the goal mark, but when it got time to the playoffs, his age started showing a little bit. He had a couple of crucial plays, crucial giveaways, even during the power plays yesterday. I think the coach, he changed the lineups to make them more quicker, getting it out of the zone where they couldn't press them as much. And, they did a good job yesterday. They weren't pressing or anything else. And the 2 goals that Logan Thompson gave up, the 2 goals he gave up, one was quirky. The other one, it seems like he wasn't ready when the man shot it. I'll listen to your answer on that.
I guess some of that is probably fair. Let's do Craig in Hanover. Craig, go ahead.
Hi. I've been a Caps fan since '76, my senior year in high school. And one time had season tickets at Cap Center. Abe Poulton sat right behind me. It was really, really crazy. I look at it as a disappointing season. I'm happy for Ovechkin, happy he set the record, and I'm happy for the team, how hard they worked. But the playoffs are the calling card, and to me, it's like the same old, same old. I remember them winning one year the President's Cup. And I thought, it's going to be a cakewalk, and they got bounced.
Yeah,
so
Montreal.
I'm disappointed. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Look, I kind of view it in terms of the postseason too, and how well you do in the postseason, and it's about championships. And if I were a hardcore Caps fan, I'd be pretty disappointed, and I would think that ultimately. Maybe I would have a different perspective because of the matchup. Some of you really believe this was a bad matchup for them, and that happens sometimes. All right, that's it for the day. Enjoy the weekend. Ben Standig in for Chris Russell next.